Thank you.
Lisa, this is Craig. We are now live streaming this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now that a quorum is present, we'll call this meeting of the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee to order. All members are participating virtually. Our second item is a call to the audience. An opportunity will be provided to members of the public to provide input through written comment to the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public are asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting and must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. Comments received prior to the deadline will be read aloud during the meeting. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length, and a total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee requests an exception to this limit. Please note that comments received for agenda items posted for action will be read at the time the item is heard. Did we have any public comments?
Mr. Chair, we did not receive any public comments.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3 is approval of the August 27th, 2020 meeting minutes. Would someone like to bring forth a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, are there any discussions or any questions on those minutes before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll now do a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Matthew Potzler,
Aye.
Stan Ballone,
Aye.
Benjamin Bitter,
Aye.
Walter Bouchard, Derek Castaneda,
Aye.
Aaron Chavez,
Aye.
Beverly Chanowski,
Aye.
Sam Brown,
Aye.
Scott DeBias,
Aye.
Will Fielder,
Aye.
Robert Forrest,
Aye.
Liz Foster,
Aye.
Hondo Judd, Jessica Blazina, Martin Lucero,
Aye.
Joseph Martini,
Aye.
Zach Harbin,
Aye.
Amanda McGinnis, JC Porter,
Aye.
thank you. Mario Saldamondo,
Aye.
thank you. Megan Sheldon,
Aye.
thank you. Joe LaFortune,
Aye.
thank you. Susie Stevens,
Aye.
thank you. Ed Stillings, I'm sorry, I'll pass. Adbar Tevet,
Aye.
thank you. Robert Vondenacker, Robert Vondenacker, Michelle Wilson. Mr. Mr. Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, the evaluation of proposed PM10 certified street sweeper projects for FY 2021 CMAQ funding. Dean Giles from Maricopa from MAG will give that presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. An evaluation of proposed PM10 certified street sweeper projects for fiscal year 2021 CMAQ funding has been conducted by MAG staff. 11 street sweeper projects requesting $3.03 million in federal fiscal year 2021 CMAQ funds were evaluated, with $1.42 million in funding currently available. The deadline for submitting applications was September 10th, 2020. In the evaluation, MAG applied the CMAQ methodologies using the data provided in the applications to calculate the PM10 emission reductions. And these are shown in the table as in kilograms per day, and also calculated the cost effectiveness, which is also shown in the table, in annualized dollars per metric ton of emissions reduced. These projects are shown again enlisted in order of cost effectiveness in the table. On October 13th, 2020, the street committee met to review the applications, and no questions were received on the applications. It's anticipated that the MAG Management Committee will consider the sweeper projects at their meeting on November 4th, followed by the MAG Regional Council at their meeting on December 2nd, 2020. This item is for information, discussion, and recommendation of a prioritized list of proposed PM10 certified street sweeper projects for fiscal year 2021 CMAQ funding to the MAG Management Committee, and to retain the prioritized list for any additional fiscal year 2021 CMAQ funds that may become available due to closeout or additional funding received by this region. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if the presentation was up on screen or not, but are there any questions for Dean on this? If there aren't any questions, could we have a motion to recommend the prioritized list of proposed PM10 certified street sweeper projects for 2021 CMAQ funding to the Management Committee, and to retain the prioritized list for any additional 2021 CMAQ funds that become available due to closeout or additional funding received?
So moved. If it's all
Do we
about
have a second? All right, I think we got a second there. Lisa, would you do a roll call vote for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Matthew Potzler.
Aye.
Stan Ballone.
Aye.
Benjamin Bitter.
Aye.
Thank you. Walter Bouchard. Kim Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Derek Castaneda.
Aye.
Thank you. Peter Margoliner. Aaron Chavez.
Aye.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Aye.
Thank you. Sam Brown. Sam Brown.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott DeBias.
Aye.
Thank you. Will Fielder. Will Fielder. Robert Forrest.
Aye.
Thank you. Liz Foster.
Aye.
Thank you. Hondo Judd. Jessica Blazina. Martin Lucero.
Aye.
Thank you. Joseph Martini.
Aye.
Thank you. Zach Harbin.
Aye.
Thank you. Amanda McGinnis. J.C. Porter.
Aye.
Thank you. Mario Saldamando.
Aye.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon.
Aye.
Thank you. Joseph LaFortune.
Aye.
Thank you. Susie Stevens.
Aye.
Thank you. Advar Tavet.
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Von Den Akker. Michelle Wilson. Mr. Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item 5, evaluation of proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for FY 2023 and 2024 CMAQ funding. Dean will also give that presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. An evaluation of proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for federal fiscal year 2023 and 2024 CMAQ funds has been conducted by MAG staff. In total, 6 PM10 paving projects requesting $11.26 million in federal funds were evaluated. All of the projects are located in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. Approximately $10.12 million in CMAQ funding is available for the paving projects. The deadline for submittal of the applications was September 10th, 2020. For the evaluation, MAG staff applied the CMAQ methodologies, again, using the data supplied with the project applications to calculate the weighted PM10 emission reductions shown in kilograms per day and the cost effectiveness in dollars per metric ton. So in your packet, attachment A includes the proposed projects sorted by fiscal year in order of cost effectiveness. And again, all of these projects are located in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. So while attachment A includes the projects sorted by cost effectiveness, attachment B includes the same projects sorted by fiscal year in order of PM10 emission reductions. Under the MAG programming guidelines and procedures, the MAG Street Committee is to review the applications and project data. And on October 13th, 2023 committee met, and a summary of the qualifying questions is included in attachment C. It's anticipated that the Transportation Review Committee would consider these projects at their December 10th, 2020 meeting. This item is for information, discussion, and recommendation to rank the proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for fiscal year 2023 and 2024 CMAQ funding and forward to the MAG Transportation Review Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Are there any questions?
I have a question. This is Mario Saldamando from the city of Goodyear.
Yes.
Question is, when is the next opportunity to apply for this fund, as well as that last item? Is it an annual request?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Actually, this for federal fiscal year 2020 and 23 and 2024, MAG conducted a a solicitation for paving unpaved road projects last year. Last year was when we did a solicitation to member agencies for a wide range of CMAQ funded projects. And last year, not all of the CMAQ funds for paving projects was utilized. So we conducted a supplemental solicitation this year for the remaining PM10 funds. As far as beyond fiscal year 2024, there's no time schedule that's been developed at this time.
All right, thank you, Dean. Did that answer your question?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. Thank you. Just lastly, which cities are represented on the streets committee? I was looking on the website. I didn't see that. Did all the MAG member agencies or?
Yeah, yes, roughly yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, well, now take a motion to recommend the ranking of these proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for 23 and 24 CMAQ funding and forward this to the MAG Transportation Review Committee. Would anybody like to forward that motion or make that motion?
I move so.
Thank you. Second?
This is Ben Bitter. I'll second.
Thank you. We'll now do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Matthew Potzler,
Aye.
Stan Ballone,
Aye.
thank you. Benjamin Bitter,
Aye.
thank you. Walter Bouchard, Kim Butler,
Aye.
thank you. Derek Castaneda,
Aye.
thank you. Peter Margoliner,
Aye.
thank you. Aaron Chavez,
Aye.
thank you. Beverly Chanowski,
Aye.
thank you. Sam Brown,
Aye.
thank you. Scott Tobias,
Aye.
thank you. Will Fielder, Robert Forrest,
Aye.
thank you. Liz Foster,
Aye.
thank you. Martin Lucero,
Aye.
thank you. Joseph Martini,
Aye.
thank you. Zach Harbin,
Aye.
thank you. JC Porter,
Aye.
thank you. Mario Saldamondo,
Aye.
thank you. Megan Sheldon,
Aye.
thank you. Joseph LaFortune,
Aye.
thank you. Susie Stevens,
Aye.
thank you. Alvar Tevet,
Aye.
thank you. Robert Vandenacker, Mr. Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6, update on the 2022 Serious Area Particulate Plan for PM10 for the West Pinal County Non-Attainment Area. Matt Poppin from MAG will give that presentation. Do we have Matt present to do that presentation? I'm not hearing anything on my end.
Hello, Mr. Chair, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Yes, today we are providing an update on the ongoing planning efforts for a serious area particulate plan for the West Pinal County non-attainment area. And we do have a presentation available for that. So we'll wait a second or two while that presentation loads, and I will begin. Okay, great, thank you. Next slide. So as background, and we did discuss this at our August committee meeting, originally on May 31st, 2012, EPA had designated the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area as a moderate area, effective July 2nd, 2012. In response to that designation, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality prepared a moderate area PM10 plan and submitted it to EPA on December 21st, 2015. The attainment date for that plan was December 31st, 2018. On June 24th, EPA published a final rule to determine that the non-attainment area had failed to meet the standard by the attainment date, and also reclassified the West Pinal County PM10 non-attainment area from a moderate area to a serious area. The effective date of that reclassification is July 24th, 2020. So in response, a serious area plan is due to EPA within 18 months of that reclassification date, which is January 24th, 2022. Next slide. The West Pinal Serious PM10 non-attainment area is highlighted in blue, and there are currently 8 PM10 monitors that are within that PM10 non-attainment area. Thank you. Next slide. Back in our August meeting, we spent a good deal of time walking through our preliminary draft schedule for the plan, and I've included it again in this presentation for reference. Today, we'll be focusing largely on work to complete the BACM and MSM analyses. BACM is best available control measures and most stringent measures analyses. So this update will be focused on the planning work that is beginning and ongoing to complete those analyses. Next slide. And the next slide, please. So the Clean Air Act does require that all serious areas implement best available control measures on all significant sources of PM10 or PM10 precursor emissions if they are significant. EPA defines significant sources, those that contribute more than 5 micrograms per cubic meter to a violation of the 24-hour PM10 standard. And as a reminder, the PM10 standard is 150 micrograms per cubic meter. Best available control measures are defined as the maximum degree of emissions reduction from a particulate source, while also considering the technological and economic feasibility of implementing that measure. BACM are required to be implemented no later than 4 years after the reclassification effective date, which in our case is July 24th, 2024. Best available control technology, which is basically BACM on point sources, is also included as part of BACM requirements. Next slide, please. In addition to BACM, the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area will also have to, the plan will also have to include most stringent measures. And this is as part of the requirement to seek an extension of the attainment date for the non-attainment area. The current attainment date for the non-attainment area is December 31st, 2022. Now, to date, in 2020, there have been multiple exceedances of the PM10 standard at the Hidden Valley monitors, more than 4. So that makes attaining by the attainment date impractical. So we will not be able to make that December 31st, 2022 attainment date. Because of that, an extension of the attainment date will need to be sought. So there are several requirements that need to be met in order for EPA to grant an extension of the attainment date. The first one, again, is that you have to show that attainment by the normal attainment date, December 31st, 2022, is impracticable. You have to have compliance with all of the requirements and commitments in the plan. And then what I'm focusing on in this presentation is the plan must include the most stringent measures that are included in the plan of any state or are achieved and practiced in any state and can be feasibly implemented in the area. The attainment must occur as expeditiously as possible, as soon as possible, and no later than December 31st, 2027. No more than a 5-year extension is allowed under this section of the Act. Next slide. So in order to begin work, ongoing work on best available control measures and most stringent measures analyses, MAG has contracted with Trinity Consultants to perform analyses of these measures for the West Pinal County Serious PM10 non-attainment area. So to begin the analyses, candidate measures for BACM and MSM for all significant sources of PM10 within the non-attainment area will be identified by comparing the existing measures that currently are in place within the non-attainment area to measures in other serious PM10 non-attainment areas and PM10 maintenance areas that were formerly serious, as currently identified by EPA's Green Book. EPA's Green Book has a listing of current PM10 non-attainment areas and also PM10 maintenance areas. So under that classification, there are 10 areas identified by EPA's Green Book currently. Those include the Coachella Valley in California, East Kern County in California, Imperial Valley in California, Maricopa County in Arizona, Owens Lake in California, Clark County in Nevada, Los Angeles South Coast Air Basin in California, the San Joaquin Valley Air Basin in California, Wallulu, Washington, and Washoe County in Nevada as well. Next slide, please. The significant sources of PM10 in the West Pinal County non-attainment area have previously been identified in the 2015 West Pinal Moderate Area PM10 Plan prepared by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And the sources have largely stayed the same since that plan was prepared, and there has not been many significant changes to the sources of PM10 within the non-attainment area since that plan was prepared. However, since this is a new planning effort, new significant sources of PM10 may be added as new emissions inventories are developed for the non-attainment area and new modeling inventories. So it is possible additional significant sources may be identified as ongoing work to develop new inventories for the area are being developed. It is anticipated that emissions of precursors to PM10, pollutants such as nitrogen oxides, are not anticipated to be considered as significant sources of PM10. And this is based upon prior work that was done showing that it's really the direct emissions of PM10 that are significant in the non-attainment area, not secondary PM10 formation. So it'll be only directly emitted PM10 that are anticipated to be considered significant sources of PM10. Next slide. As part of the analyses, the PM10 emission reductions of these candidate measures will be evaluated and quantified as compared to the existing measures in the non-attainment area to see how much PM10 is reduced if those measures were to be implemented. Along with that, the candidate measures will also be evaluated for their technological and economic feasibility. In terms of technological feasibility, that will include a discussion of the many technological issues that could be involved with implementing a new measure or a new technology. And also the evaluation of economic feasibility will include a cost effectiveness analysis, dollars per ton of PM10 reduced for those candidate measures and technologies. Next slide. So the final analyses will include a summary table that will try and summarize all of this information for evaluation. The summary table will include a narrative description of the candidate measures and the technology, as well as a narrative description of how stringent each of those candidate measures or technologies are as compared to the existing measures in the West Pinal County non-attainment area. It will include the PM10 reductions achieved by each candidate measure or technology as compared to existing measures. It will include a narrative description of the technological feasibility of each candidate measure or technology, and it will also include a summary of the economic feasibility, again, cost effectiveness of each candidate measure or technology as expressed in dollars per ton of PM10 reduced. So next slide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Sam Brown, City of Scottsdale. Could you, just to put everything in perspective, could you give an example of, say, from experience of, say, significant source and BACM and MSN? Just a real life example of following that chain all the way through? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of the significant sources that have been identified in the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area include agriculture, include feedlots, and includes unpaved roads, construction activities. For windblown dust, there are several land uses that have been identified. So there are several significant sources that under, exceedance days will contribute more than 5 micrograms to the exceedance. So there has been, good work done prior to identify those, and those are largely anticipated to stay the same. As an example of how the process works, if you take a category such as let's say, unpaved road, you would look at the controls that exist currently in West Pinal County. What is required in order to stabilize or to pave unpaved roads, and what situations are dust from unpaved roads controlled currently within West Pinal County. And then you go and you look at the controls that exist in those other 10 areas. You identify which ones may be more stringent, and then you try and identify the costs of implementing those more stringent measures. You identify the technological issues involved with implementing those measures, and then you also try and quantify the PM10 reductions that would be achieved if those measures were implemented. So that is sort of the process of this analysis, and then all that information is synthesized for the decision makers to consider when considering whether the measures should be implemented or not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any additional questions?
This is Aaron Chavez with the City of Mesa. Matt, you mentioned agriculture as being a significant source. Will Trinity's BACM and MSM analysis address agricultural BMPs as well, or is that going to be traditionally left to the agricultural program through the state, or not really subject to the requirements under this plan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, the consultant will be performing analyses for agricultural measures, and once those analyses are complete, that analysis will then be handed over to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and the Agricultural BMP Committee for consideration. So it is, the Agricultural BMP is in statute, so they do have authority over consideration of agricultural measures, but the consultant will be doing this initial evaluation of BACM and MSM for agricultural sources, and then that will be handed over to the Agricultural BMP Committee for consideration.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any additional questions? All right, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 7, Valley Metro 2020 Transportation Demand Management Survey Results. Abigail Cooksey-Williams from Valley Metro and Catherine DeBoer, West Group Research, will give that presentation.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. As you may know, the Commute Solutions team at Valley Metro works closely with MAG, Maricopa County, and ADEQ to assist with travel reduction TDM programs for the Valley. Each year, we're funded to work with a research organization to gauge how we're doing. The TDM survey seeks residents' opinions on alternative modes and schedules, air quality, and traffic to determine marketing strategies. It also helps measure awareness as well as effectiveness of programs and services. For over a decade, I believe, we have worked with West Group. They conduct a very comprehensive surveying process and provide us with some interesting insight for each year, and especially during a pandemic year. I would like to ask Kathy DeBoer from West Group to walk you through a high-level overview of this year's results. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Abby and members of the committee for inviting me to give this presentation. And Abby was kind in saying it was just 10 years. I've actually been working on this study for 30 years. So my history with Valley Metro goes back a very long time. And I am delighted to present these survey results to you. So if you want to move on to the next slide. We completed 429 interviews. We have a primary audience of employed, so 331 of the respondents were employed full-time or part-time, with a subpopulation of just around 198 to be specific of non-employed residents. We balanced the sample for males and females, and the survey is conducted using telephone and online surveys. In today's world, it's very difficult to find a single methodology that reaches all members of the population based on their preference and cell phone access and all sorts of different things. So we found that a mixed methodology is most effective in these situations. So that is what we utilized for this study. And as I mentioned, we have data going back a very long time. So we compared to the historical data when applicable. Next slide, please. We started first just by, I wanted to point out that we did ask a series of demographics, but most important is their employment status, because we were doing this right after the stay-at-home order was put in place. We wanted to just acknowledge that what had happened to people prior to COVID, and then capture what was happening at the very peak of the COVID pandemic and how it affected our population. And so we asked people to tell us what their current employment status was, as well as what their employment status was prior to March 1. And obviously the most notable was that employment went up to 11%. And again, just in terms of the timing of this, at the time of the survey, indeed the reports from the state where that our unemployment was at 11%. So just a verification from our standpoint that we were talking to a representative population. And you can see that the bulk of it came from those who were full-time employed. And it really wasn't coming so much from it wasn't coming at all from the part-time employment status. Next slide, please. We begin each survey every year with asking folks to tell us what they feel the major issues facing the Valley are. And this obviously varies greatly from year to year. A couple of years ago, this was dominated by the Red for Ed campaign. And not surprisingly, this year, the economy and COVID dominated the opinion. And it just is helpful for us to document the context of the survey and then understand where air quality, transportation, and growth falls in comparison to the more urgent or timely issues that may be facing the world and the Valley. And in previous years, traffic congestion, for example, in 2019, had 15% of the total mentions, but only was mentioned by 1% this year. Next slide, please. Just showing you specifically what goes into the net air quality and transportation categories. You can see drops in almost all of those from growth management, air quality, traffic congestion was the one, and the net transportation and transit. Those two took the biggest drop in comparison to previous years. Again, not surprising at this time in April. Traffic congestion wasn't an issue, and folks were not particularly interested in using public transit. In some cases, it wasn't available for a while. Next slide, please. Two questions about traffic congestion. We asked folks to tell us how big of a problem they feel that overall traffic congestion is, and then personally, what type of a problem is congestion. And you can see in both instances, the references or the ratings on traffic congestion decreased this year. And we also had fewer folks this year, continuing a decline that we saw the last couple of years in terms of perceiving air quality as a big or moderate problem that has dropped almost 10 points in the last 2 years. Next slide, please. Ad awareness this year bumped up dramatically. My understanding from Abby and the folks at Valley Metro that there was an increase in intensity of campaign and funds directed towards campaigns, so that explains the increase in awareness. Residents typically have been very supportive of any messages that encourage alternate mode usage, and that bumped up this year, which we often see in years where the advertising awareness is higher as well. Ad awareness of specific ads were consistent with previous years. They're seeing these ads or hearing them from traffic reporters. They're receiving it from mail that's asking them to share the ride, and they're recalling what they may be seeing online that are encouraging people to enjoy a sweet deal and start using alternate modes. Next slide, please. So looking specifically, again, at the current situation versus what was in place prior to March 1, you can see in the broad categories of people always using an alternate mode, so that's exclusively. So for whatever work they are doing, they are using some type of alternate mode. That increased by 30 points. Those who were using a balance of modes, so they maybe be driving alone some day and working from home other days, or carpooling, that percentage stayed very much the same. And then the biggest dip then was those who were solo drivers. They always drove alone on their commute, and that dropped down a significant amount. And the bulk of that, as you can see, was picked up by people now working from home. Next slide. So this is looking at just a little bit more detail. This is based by the percent of people. Again, the green bar is current, what they were doing at post start of the pandemic, and the orange is prior to March 1. Again, just reiterating, it was the single occupant vehicle number that declined from 83% to 54%, and the total alternate mode usage, meaning anybody using any alternate mode, increased from 43 to 69. We saw dramatic drops in those driving alone, but we also saw a decline in people using carpools from 14 down to 5%. Those using rideshare services, such as Uber and Lyft, dropped down from 4 to 1%. And again, the bulk of it was going up from telework. A note on the compressed schedule, based on the way the survey is set up, it just wasn't a feasible way to ask folks about their work schedule prior to March 1. It just interrupted the flow of the survey. Next slide, please. So now we move into the tracking data. And not a surprise that going into this year, based on those on their current employment and their current commute, dramatic changes from the historical data as expected. That the always alternate mode is at a level we've never seen before. But again, we felt it was really important to not interrupt the tracking of this study. We have kept it going through all sorts of changes when gas prices were approaching $4 and when the economy had tanked. And we just felt that it was really important to measure what was going on at the peak of the pandemic impact, so that next year when we come in, we know what the high was, and then we can see, is it going to settle down? That's kind of the philosophy or the theory, is the expectation that some of this alternate mode usage is going to, people are going to slip back into their old patterns. They're going to be going back to work. I know folks have been seeing that. So we wanted to know what the peak was, and then once we see next year, then we can see, okay, what stuck and what was just temporary. Next slide, please. So again, compared to last year, the percent who say they are driving alone at least one day a week dropped from 85% to 54%. Teleworking went up from 20% to 53%. Those working a schedule say essentially the same, went up a little bit. And you can see that the percentage of those indicating that they are carpooling or van pooling dropped from 17 to 6%. We had a slight increase in walking, and then the others at transit modes also had dropped from 3% to 1%. Next slide, please. Looking at it by percent of trips, the previous slide was by percent of people. So this is putting together all of the trips and non-trips. And again, you can see the carpool rideshare trips dropped from 9 to 4%. And the total drive alone trips dropped from 69% of all trips to just 43% of all trips. And then the balance, we had a huge increase from 9% of all trips being, or non-trips being associated with telework, and that increased to 42% this year. Next slide. Looking at it by large versus small organizations, we do this because we know that we have the trip reduction program that impacts large organizations. And so we look at the alternate mode usage to see the impact of that program. And you can see that among larger organizations, there was a higher likelihood to shift to an only alternate mode message or work from home. And so it was easier for employees at larger companies to be able to do that, whereas it was somewhat less likely at smaller companies. But still, there was a 20-point decline among small people who worked at small organizations from 85 to 63% driving alone, and an increase from 37 to 59%, but the growth was much more dramatic among larger companies, going from 45% alternate mode to 73% alternate mode. Next slide, please. Not surprisingly, when we ask them why they're using alternate mode, 71% it's related to COVID. That's, they're staying home because that's the way it's supposed to, and all other reasons declined, with the exception of it's just the way the company is set up, and they had already been working from home. Next slide. We asked about their online matching system that Valley Metro offers, and also their likelihood to consider the online system. About a quarter of the commuters are aware of the online matching system, but not surprisingly, at this point in 2020, there's not as high a level of likelihood that they are considered looking for a carpool partner. But still, half indicated that they would consider it for their commute. Next slide, please. We just confirm whether they are aware that their employer has a transportation coordinator. And while larger company employees are much more likely than smaller to report that they do have a TC, still only 1/3 of those with a mandated trip reduction program are aware that they have a a transportation coordinator. About half of them say their employer provides resources for alternate mode usage, and about 40% are encouraged to provide alternate mode usage, whereas among the smaller companies, that is much less prominent, again, because they're not required to. Next slide, please. We asked them about ways that they can be encouraged by their employers, and historically, employees are always looking for some incentive or reward. If they're going to use carpooling or if they're going to use public transit, that is the best way to encourage folks to use alternate mode usage. Others are looking for some assistance, be it through a transit pass or changes in company policy regarding their commute options. Next slide, please. This one shows that folks, if they are looking for information at the work site, again, it goes to that carpool information that stays consistent. Transit mentions are you're looking for some sort of transit solution information, and then, but in most part, 43% are really not interested in hearing about what they could do. Next slide.
So it's a system.
I'm sorry? Okay. Messages most likely to encourage alternate mode uses. Interestingly, historically, there was not a lot of differentiation among the messages, no matter how we worked them. That if you look at those bottom 3 or 4 lines underneath the top green line, historically, it's usually around 60 to 65% are say that they would be likely to be encouraged by any one of those messages. But this year, it really focused on the folks that are most likely to respond or change their mode of transportation. They're looking either at saving money, or they have strong feelings about helping improve the environment and improving air quality. It dropped off for the softer, less tangible improvements did not garner the same level of support that we had seen in the past. And we added a new one about reducing traffic congestion by using public transit, but that came in at the bottom, and again, not surprisingly in light of the pandemic. Next slide. So overall, I've touched on most of these already, but it was a reminder, the study was conducted in the first few months of the pandemic. We knew it was going to impact study results, but we were okay with that because we wanted to be able to track that and identify the magnitude of the impact and use it as a benchmark in the future. COVID-19 dominated the thoughts of all, and what we saw reported in the study was reflected also in the news and the reports that were coming in from multiple sources. Next slide, please. Oops, there we go. We were very pleased and wanted to document that the commute behavior prior to March 1 was in line with the historical data for % of people using alternate modes and % of commute trips. Again, just reiterating among us, then reaffirming that we were talking to the same population. There wasn't something unusual about this population that was causing the results that we were seeing. Because of the stay-at-home order, we did see that huge leap in telecommuting and decreases in use of all modes that requires a multi-person commute, such as carpooling, van pooling, or public transit, and even in the Uber and Lyft rideshare programs. Next slide. Advertising and news story awareness were stronger than in the past, and as we mentioned, and Abby can talk about that, with the higher focus and intent on the campaigning. Valley Metro is a good source for carpool matching, but just reluctance is in effect right now. And then, as we just talked about, the top 3 motivators that will still continue to encourage folks to use other modes is to show signs of saving money, protecting the environment, and preserving air quality. And just anecdotally, I can tell you right now, we are doing a bulletin board discussion online with Valley Metro transit users. And we ask them about, what do they like best about using public transit? It usually falls into one of these categories. They enjoy, they like to save their money. They don't have to have the expense of a car. And it's important to them to be doing something that helps the environment. So we are hearing that as well, that those are, and these are from users who are riding it right now in the middle of the pandemic. So they are finding a use for it, as well as those who just don't have another choice. But there are still those that are using these motivators to use it even when they have other options. And again, public transit, while people are using it, it is taking more to convince them that it is a good option for them right now. And I believe that is it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
This is Mario from the city of Goodyear. It's a great presentation. Thank you very much for your time and your research. I was just curious how you primarily use the data.
That would be a question for Abby.
Yeah, I was going to say I can take that. There's a variety of ways that we use the data. I know that our funding sources do request it. It kind of is just checks and balances of the program that we are currently using. We also use it to decide and determine marketing approaches. We also use it as well as for whether it's the messaging, whether it's the method or the channel that we decide to use. There's a variety of ways that we can apply it. It also is very helpful when we go and meet with transportation coordinators at employers, that if we kind of have a sense of what is happening in the community and the perceptions and the success or what seems to be working, we can kind of help them apply a microcosm of that within their organization. So it's such a wonderful research tool that just really helps us kind of take the temperature and make sure that we're on track.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 8, request for future agenda items. Topics or issues of interest that the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee would like to have considered for discussion at a future meeting will be requested. The next meeting of the committee is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, December 3rd. Does anyone have any requests for future agenda items at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 9, which is our business is now concluded. So we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
Lindy?
Yes.
Hey, it's Mandy. I just wanted to let you know I was here. I came in late, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.